Welcome to another edition of Globespan 24/7 Transparency and Accountability Program. Tonight, our special topic is the sugar industry in Guyana. And to discuss issues affecting the sugar industry and to make specific recommendations for the improvement or possible solutions of the challenges, we have two learned gentlemen on our program, one of whom is Mr. Aslim Singh, the General Secretary of the Guyana Agricultural Workers Union, GAU, and he is an economist. He also has a master's degree in business administration, and he's currently studying for another Master of Science degree. He'll tell you a little bit more about himself. The other person is Mr. Leyland who is no stranger to Globespan viewers. He is a CEO for Imperial Homes in New York. He's also was a teacher, he's a researcher, he's a prolific writer in the Guyana media, and he's a born sugar industry representative from Lenora. So moving on to the program right away, we want to ask Mr. Aslim Singh to please introduce yourself to our viewers on the Globespan 24/7 program here tonight. Mr. Aslim Singh.
All right, thank you, Dr. Jadoopat, Mr. RoopnarineModerator. Good night to all your viewers joining us from the different parts of the world. As you said in the introduction, I'm General Secretary of GAU, just a little bit over a year into that post. But I've been with GAU for more than 20 years now, serving previously as Assistant General Secretary, International Affairs Secretary, Research and Communications Officer. So I've held several posts within the union over the years I've been there. Of course, being associated with the union's work, not only in sugar, but in the sectors outside of sugar where we enjoy representation, and even at the national level where we would engage on matters in respect of labor and workers generally. So I've been able to have a wide exposure. In sugar in particular, I've been involved in the very closely with the operations of Gaisuku over the years, and would have been able to have a fair bit of knowledge on what's taking place. And again, once again, thank you for having us and to allowing us to use this forum to share any views we may have on this. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Singh. Mr. Leyland RoopnarineModerator, please, we know the viewers know you, but please also, for the records, introduce yourself and you can probably explain your relationship to the sugar industry and if you did any research work on the Guyana sugar industry in particular.
With the SMAC, we create two great sugar producing areas, Lenora and Club. All my neighbors in entirety were associated with sugar, regardless of whether they were actually cutting cane or they were working in the offices in the sugar industry. I grew up with sugar, and I know the culture and the mindset of the people who work in the sugar industries. So I'm very glad to be on this program because I am very, very knowledgeable about sugar and its related activities, both economic and cultural.
Okay, very good. Thank you for those brief introductions. And let us move on straight into the actual challenges of facing the sugar industry today. I wouldn't want to prompt you because I think you know about the sugar industry more than I do. I just want to say on my part, I am Dr. Rudy Jadoopat, the moderator, international coordinator for Globespan 24/7 program on transparency and accountability. I work as the national coordinator for the Guyana Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative from February 2017 to March 2022. And now I'm here with Globespan. Prior to that, with the sugar industry, I worked in the sugar industry for 3 years, from 1977 to 1980. I was the chairman of NACI for the Diamond Branch, and I got a scholarship from NACI to go and study international economic relations, which I did successfulully. And my family are sugar workers. Well, not all of them, but my grandfather worked in the sugar industry. So I have a fair knowledge, apart from being myself involved in the sugar industry with the trade union also. I was a friend of Mr. Late, may soul rest in peace, Kamal Chan. Uh, I respect him a lot, and Mr. Narayan, the current president. Uh, I would say that we are very good friends, and we all have the sugar industry in our heart. So having this program to talk about the welfare, well-being of the sugar industry and the people who work in the sugar industry is very close to my heart. So the first thing I would like to ask maybe Mr. Aslim Singh to tell us a little bit about the current situation in the sugar industry. What are some of the challenges? I would like you to probably enlighten our viewers as to the scope of the issues that we are facing in the sugar industry. And in order to do that in a very specific way, outline the acreage of the Guyana sugar industry, how much of that is being cultivated in terms of cane per estate if you have that. If not, you can tell us that you can get that information, or that information is available. We know that the sugar industry belongs to the people of Guyana. It is owned and operated by the people of Guyana. The people of Guyana have the right to the data and information about the sugar industry. If you own something, you ought to know what's going on with it. Is that data and information available to the public? How can it be accessed? Where is it available? I've looked at the website of Gaisuku, and I'm very astonished. But I don't want to say more than that. There's great scope for improvement of that. I look for data and information on specific estates, historically and currently. I can't locate it. For example, you want to know what is how much land is being cultivated in Gaisuku, how much is in Blairmont, how much in Rose Hall, Albion, Iflot, and so on. And then how much of that land is also used for pathways like transportation, dams, and so on. How much is used for canals? How much is the cost for maintaining those canals and so on? So before we get into the program, I don't know if you can shed some light on that, and maybe something else you would like to add to that, Mr. Aslim Singh.
All right, thank you again, Dr. Jadoopat, Mr. Ruopnarine, and everyone. I'm not sure to what extent the Gaisuku website is updated. I do know I haven't checked it in some time, but the last time I checked it, the annual reports of the company available up to what is publicly available, I think it's 2018, 2019, and thereafter. I think the audits are still to be finalized, and thereafter the reports will be issued.
That's true. 2018 is there, but not after that. You're correct.
Right. So
Why not? 4 years to get the annual report. What is called?
Well, I mean, Gaisuku will be better able to tell you what are the reasons for them not being there or being there. That's completely outside of my scope of knowledge. So I won't be able to tell you, but I do know from my own intimate knowledge of the annual reports, dated as they may be, though at least the publicly available ones. The data you're looking for in terms of the acreage or hectareage by estate, I don't think, and I don't ever recollect the companies ever identifying the amount of land that is utilized by infrastructure, whether it be drainage or other transportation, roadways, and so on, bridges and whatnot. I don't ever recall coming across that data in all my years of being associated with sugar. But there is data available in the annual reports on costs and that sort of information. Each annual report would have a table which gives you previous tenure, the last decade review. So it's very useful, telling you apart from hectareage under cultivation, cane production, sugar production, exports, and whatnot. I did manage to put together some data, and I can tell you that this year, from information through the union's organizational work and its contact on the ground, Albion Estate, this is hectares. I don't have it in acres, unfortunately. hectares. Albion has about 8,300 hectares to use round numbers. Claremont 40, almost 4,800, and Eiflet almost 3,300. So that's the totally it's just a little bit over 16,000. But this is actual cane cultivation. This does not include lands that are being utilized for whether drainage and irrigation or drainage or irrigation canals, the dams, as you mentioned, and the other infrastructure, factories, and so on. This does not reflect. This is actual lands that are cultivated on the cane presently.
Okay.
But if I can move on to, I mean, from Gao's point of view, I mean, the major challenge in the industry right now, from our perspective, is agricultural. The industry is not being able, and for different reasons, is not being able to produce sufficient quantities of cane. And you would recall in the past the types of productivity guys would have had. And as recent, maybe as 20 years ago, guys, whose production was in excess of 300,000 tons of sugar. There is potential to produce. Of course, we must recognize in the recent times the miniaturization with the 4 estates were closed. Fields in 2016, followed by East Demerara, Rosal, and Skeldon in 2017. So that's more than half of the industry was closed in terms of the numerical number of estates. So that it's one challenge. It obviously would have restricted the economies of scale the company may have enjoyed. And on the other side of it, whether we lost certain productivities from investments in those assets which are closed, well, it's debatable if you want to say that. So that's one challenge. The other side of it is that poor production has restricted capital investment, and an absence of investment in the industry is also partly contributing to what we're seeing today, the poor production. What we recognize, however, is the investment by the new government to improve capital, and we've seen tangibly investment into the industry. Obviously, with the anticipation that things will be able to turn around, I think the government has been very clear, in fact, on it that they're committed to seeing the industry turn around and to have the resource on the jobs which are lost following the closure of estates.
That sounds very interesting, and I think that can lead us into the next idea here. I don't know if Mr. Roopnarine, would you like to come in at this point?
Well, Mr. Singh is very familiar with the nitty-gritty and the kind of the micro production aspects of sugar. But looking at the sugar industry from an economic perspective, we are facing a real disaster here. Assuming we have a workforce close to 7,000 persons, right? So far, since the PPP government has taken office, $20.9 billion has been funneled into the sugar industry. Now, if we do some maths here, this amount of money divided by 7,000 persons is roughly a huge, unbelievable figure of close to $2.9 million per person for the period since the PPP has taken office. Now, guys, Super in 2 years has produced 140,000 tons of sugar. What this means is that we are producing sugar at about 500 and above dollars per ton, where the world market price of sugar is around $250 per ton. So our production cost is twice the world market price. And if we continue to plunge money into Gaisuko, it's basically we are entering into a situation where guidance to you dig one hole to fill another hole. You see,
Mr.
For
Rutarine,
the past
can you
7 years under the coalition and not 2 years under the PPP, Gaisuko has received an average of $7 billion per year. And if we equate that with the production for this year, which is roughly 30,000 tons, the production for the whole of Gaisuko for this year so far is 30,000 tons. Remember, one sugar factory, Alba, used to produce over 50,000 tons per year. And the entire Gaisuko organization is producing roughly 30,000 tons a year. It means we have a serious problem. The industry is faced with infrastructure problems, both on a social level and a mechanized level. In fact, during the coalition era of sugar, there were about 150 strikes in that 5-year period. Those strikes, they actually produced 44,000 man-days were lost. That's a huge amount of money that's lost to sugar.
So
currently, there are
challenges
states that don't produce any sugar for the simple reason that there is not enough sugar to grind. So a lot of people have to get paid for simply sitting down on their desk or doing whatever they have to do and basically doing nothing and getting paid.
Okay, those are the
So apart from the
challenges.
fact that we don't have enough sugar to grind,
How do we resolve these challenges?
well, we have we have the luxury of saying we can resolve in time. But as we see from 2006 to now, sugar has received enormous subsidies. Had it not been for oil revenue, it's hard to conceptualize where this money will be coming from. My view of what guys took is that each sugar estate should be privatized and account for the individual production, as opposed to a totality of collectively producing sugar under the name of Gaisuko.
Okay, so your recommendation for a solution, or one of the recommendations, I think you're going to have more, is the privatization of the sugar industry. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, Mr. Aslim Singh, would you like to say anything on that note?
I mean, I listened to Mr. Ruopner, and he began by saying, Gaisuko was selling sugar in the vicinity of 200 and 250 US dollars a ton. Gaisuko in the press, and I'm going by what I see in the press, because Gaisuko shared its selling sugar at 700 US dollars a ton. They're about a little bit more, because what they have now moved to is moved away from the bulk market production, which is the reservoir market price, the residual price, and moved into the packaged direct consumption sort of sugar. And I think that's been the trust of the company to move into that level of or that sort of production to situate itself within a higher price market. So I think Gaisuku itself, and I read back, unfortunately, it may not have enough sugar to meet some of the demand it's getting in the region and maybe further afield. I don't think there's much bulk sugar these days as you had in the past going to Europe and elsewhere exported. But in addition to that, I mean, Mr. Rutarine spoke about the strikes in the industry. I mean, strikes are unfortunate, but at the same time, the workers have they face no other avenue but to defend themselves in this um, given the nature of the issue. But at the end of the day, when we hear about 150 strikes, 150 strikes would mean all X thousand number of workers strike together. A strike can involve 5 workers, 10 workers, 15 workers. It's counted as one strike, but it doesn't mean the entire industry. But notwithstanding that, um, targets are met. Uh, Maybe there are targets we would want to have met, but targets are met. Just last week, I read in the papers, IFOT attaining its 50 target, and then the week before, Albion and Clermont or Albion. So you're seeing some level, some signs of improvement and seeming to indicate that the capital investment is starting to show some level of effect. Um, I don't share the view of having each estate separated from a distinct point of view, um, because we lose that economies of scale which we may have together as a unitary thing, and then certain managerial functions are managed better centrally than they are. Marketing, for instance, fine. How, how would we manage that segregated into the industry? So then I heard him saying that that people are sitting here idly. I mean, sugar workers are a vast majority of them are piece rated, meaning that they're only paid when they're in actual production capacity, right? So on. So there is a minority who's time rated, and they would be engaged in productive work. Sometimes even the factory with time rated employees working if there isn't work in shift. So they are those guys who has systems. It's key as systems.
I think the quality of sound is fading here. Can we
Sorry, you hear me?
Right, now it's better. Yes.
Okay, yeah. So I was saying that even in instances where workers are paid based on their hourly, whether hour or daily work, if there's no work available to them, guys who has systems which allow them to not require that set of workers a certain period. So those things are not new to the industry. I mean, I have met them coming into GAO more than 20 years ago. So there are ways they think other than that, their maintenance works which still have been done, and guys who tends to use some of those periods if they don't have um, gains to grind to do work in the factory and elsewhere during those periods.
Um, Recently, we have been seeing a number of articles, I should say quite a number of articles in the media about the sugar industry. And Mr. Rupanarine, do you want to make some comments on those articles?
Well, I've written extensively on sugar, but I mean, we don't want to reinvent the wheel here, but there is no other crop in this world that has caused so much bloodshed and hardships and cruelty to humankind as sugar. We could start with slavery, and we could end up with the Edmore massacre, and between those, Devonshire Castle shootings, where five workers were killed, and we can go on and on and tell you about the hardships that face sugar workers and the hard job that sugar workers face themselves in going to the fields to cut cane. This is an industry that's close to 200 years old, and we must remember that our ancestors came from India previous to the African slave trade to work in the field and toil in the sun to cut cane 200 years ago. Why would any government or why would any group of people
not previous,
harp on going back to something that produced unmeasurable hardships and bloodshed since 200 years? Why would anybody want to be so enthusiastic in going back to sugar and sugar cane?
Right, that's
the culture that's around sugar cane. We don't see other places in the world, for instance, the southern blacks in America who were imported to pick cotton in the south, going back to our sharecropping and picking cotton.
Okay, Mr. Rupanarine,
it's like we are retrograde now. It seems like the culture of sugar can never be erased from one ethnic group in that country.
Right. What is the solution? What is the solution? How do we resolve that?
Way back in 2006, the European Union was phasing out their preferential price with sugar in Ghana. And they gave both to the Jagdeo and to the Ramatar governments close to 25 billion Ghana dollars to diversify sugar and to use alternative crops and to improve the technology and production of sugar. What do we get? We get a skeleton sugar factory that costs $200 million. That is supposed to produce 100,000 tons of cane, of sugar. 100,000 tons of sugar. Skellern hasn't produced 5,000 tons of sugar for this year so far. So that's 200 million going down the drain there. Secondly, we can't compete with the rest of the world when it comes to production of sugar. Listen, an acre of land will give you about 25 tons of cane in Guyana. In India, it's about 40 tons.
Is that so, Mr. Singh?
An acre of land? No, it's more than
How much ton cane per acre?
It's closer to 40 based on the numbers I'm seeing here.
Okay.
Well, we're not getting 40. All right. We're not getting 40 tons of cane. In India, you get about 50 to 60 tons per acre. Listen to this now.
In India, okay.
In Guyana, it takes between 10 to 13 tons of cane to produce 1 ton of sugar.
That's so
in India, it's 8. Australia is 8. Brazil is an average of 7 tons of cane per ton of sugar. So we are being way behind not only in productivity, but in cost effectiveness as well. And if we continue to pump money into an industry that is not responding to modern technology, modern management systems, and production methods, then the corollary is simple. We are doomed to defeat. You know, we are following the Pied Piper, as the children story go. We all know what a Pied Piper is. Guyana presently produces sugar at 35 cents per pound. The world market price is about 18 cents per pound. So when we are talking about value added and value added prices for sugar, what we do is adding the prices locally and selling our own sugar to our own people at a higher price. That's like taking from the left hand and giving to the right hand. That doesn't make economic sense. So no matter how much tractors you pour into the sugar industry and how much technocrats you bring into the sugar industry will never be productive. This is the case where you have a Dunn seller and you buy the best of pens and the best of pencils and the best of stationery for him or her to write on. No matter how much pens and stationery you buy for this child, if you're done, you're bound to fail.
Okay, so you were saying that in order to resolve some of these issues in terms of productivity and cost effectiveness, we should modernize. Yeah. You hope that they will modernize the industry. Mr. Singh, can you come in here and say if Leyland, Mr. Leyland Roopnarine gave us the good figures there? Is it close or is it whack out?
I'm not sure about. I mean, he did mention, I think, in his intervention just now, that Skellern produced 5,000 tons of sugar this year. Skellern has been closed since the end of 2017. Hasn't been operated since. So I'm not sure about that. But indeed, I tend to agree with him. Look, there are challenges of productivity. There are challenges where productivity needs to be addressed. And let's look at it. Sugar is a scientific industry. It's based on certain scientific principles. Those principles have been determined through trial and error, the empirical work done over the 360, 370 odd years the industry has been in Guyana. Apart from that, in instances all over the world. So our position, this is GAU's position, has been that we need to look at those scientific principles. We need to see where there have been deviations from those scientific principles. Of course, new technology, new science, new knowledge will always be useful to inform us how we move forward. So indeed, there is need, I think, to in some respect, to go back to those scientific basics. That is one of the things you need to also look at involving or incorporating where necessary. Let's learn from what India is doing. Let's learn from what Brazil is doing, and see where we can marry them in Guyana. So I think, you know, they are challenges, but it's not. I don't share the view. There is some light, we believe, at the end of the tunnel, but we need to have certain basics at least immediately addressed. Unfortunately, sorry.
How do you see Gaisuka benefiting from the experiences of the countries that have been producing a lot more than Guyana and more efficiently and cheaper? For example, Brazil produces in 2021-22 produced 35,350,000 tons, millions. We have the India, 36,880,000 tons. We have the European Union, 16 plus 16.5 million tons. We have, go down the list here, Guyana is nowhere close with a couple 100,000 tons. El Salvador produced 780,000 tons, and they are number 20 something or 30 something on the list of sugar producers in the world. So Guyana cannot compete with those largest producers.
I don't think Guyana's intention has ever been to compete with the big producers in the world, firstly.
Maybe that's why the price that they're getting for the sugar.
One has to understand how the world sugar market is structured. The world sugar market is probably one of the most distorted commodity markets in the world. There is no country in the world, even India, which has price floors for cane, because they produce cane. Farmers produce canes, they sell it to the mills. In Brazil, there are other subsidies given to the government through ethanol and other programs. So there is some level of government support in one way or the other to sugar producers all over. In Europe, there's tremendous support to farmers there who produce beet sugar in that part of the world. So one has to understand that when we look at the world market price, one, it's a residual price. Two, it's highly distorted. In fact, when you look at world sugar production and juxtapose at the world sugar trade, one sees an interesting picture. One will realize that, despite sugar production, sugar production year ended last Friday, September 30th, of 172 million, a very small amount of that actually traded on the world market. A lot of it is sent whether through preferential or other arrangements of trading it within countries. But I think Guyana has never shied away from that fact that we are going to aim to compete in that sphere of the market. That was never our intention, to compete in our sphere. We will take advantage of where we have a comparative advantage. In the region, we have a tremendous comparative advantage relative to our Caribbean counterparts. We have land, we have labor, of course, we have fresh water, we have the know-how. Many of our Caribbean brothers and sisters have departed for different reasons, and we have an opportunity to take up those markets. In fact, in the Caribbean alone, raw sugar demand is closer to about 100,000 tons of sugar. If we take into account refined sugar, it's another 200,000 tons of sugar. So there is potential for markets within the region, not looking further abroad. So I think we need to put that into perspective.
Yes, thank you very much. That's very interesting to hear. Mr. Rutarine, can you shed some light? Let us shift now to the other
when I have a strong disagreement with Mr. Aslim Singh here, because if we are going to produce any commodity, sugar or otherwise, we have to know what our cost of production is, because we have to be selling out overseas. And nobody's going to buy from us if our prices are not competitive with the prices of other countries. So yes, we have to compete with other countries. Sugar is not just an internal dilemma for Guyana. It has to be sold for us to get foreign exchange. And it's taking the blood out of the Guyanese people in trying to make the sugar industry viable. And as for the farm potential, since I was going to school in short farms, I heard Guyana had the potential to be the breadbasket of the Caribbean, the potential to feed clothes and house by 1976. And we have so much potential to be such a great country. And that's all we have is boiled down to, potential. It has never become a reality.
Do you believe that we have the potential to improve?
We have the potential to do a lot of things.
The sugar industry.
We have the potential to be. We have a potential to be the best cricket team in the CPL. But right now we have a captain who can't find a plane to go and play.
No, it's sugar.
We live in a country that's called the land of many waters. Yet Ghana is importing water today.
Okay.
And in the issue, on the issue of transparency, transparency to governments worldwide, not Ghana alone. Transparency to the governments worldwide is like sunlight to vampires.
We can say a lot of those things, but today we are focusing on the sugar industry, and I want to let us shift this discussion into the to pay some attention to the sugar workers, their salaries.
Well,
I understand
the
that
late,
the GAU has recently issued, and Mr. Singh, I think you wrote this in one of the media articles that I read, that you're calling for a 16% increase across the board.
No, no.
Why the sugar workers are not or feel that they're not getting a fair salary, and what are some of the issues, and how do we resolve it?
All right, let me bring some clarity to that first. First, there was a report in the papers that alluded to the union asking for 16%. We did clarify that subsequently in the papers and made the point that we will not negotiate in the media. And we will not, I mean, the discussions are ongoing. I don't want to prejudice those discussions at this point in time to see what is it we're asking for, what is it we're proposing, and at an appropriate time, those
Details,
outcomes will be
those
known.
details, right? But can you
Right.
say with the sugar workers?
Of course, one has to recognize between 2015 and 2020, sugar workers got no percent increase in wages, zero, absolutely nothing. In that period, there was an escalation of prices generally in the market for different reasons, taxation, whether local or external policies, there were increases in prices. And we did demonstrate this publicly to point out in that period, sugar workers' real wages fell by 52%, 42%, sorry. So there is a demonstration that there's a need to address the conditions of workers. I mean, that's a substantial decline in income in a very, very short period. And it's on that basis we have been negotiating, we've been engaging the Gaisuku, and we're hopeful that that amicable agreements can be reached. You there?
well, Mr. Singh, it's more of a theory rather than a pragmatic realization to get any form of wage increase in Gaisuku in an industry that has to be subsidized by over $7 billion annually. It's like it's it's an unheard of situation where a country is subsidizing the economy and the people an industry and the people are asking for more money. The late doctors Reagan used to say you can't live a Cadillac lifestyle if you have a donkey cart economy. Gaisuko is trudging along.
I want to make a
And
point quickly. I don't think sugar workers by any means live a Cadillac lifestyle. By any means whatsoever, they enjoy a Cadillac lifestyle. I would wish for them to enjoy a Cadillac lifestyle.
I wish you.
I hope that they can at some one point in time, but certainly not at this point in time. I mean, given what they've been through in the 2015-2020 period.
Well, it so happens that the question that I should ask and all our viewers here tonight is that what industry in Ghana functions efficiently and productively and cost effectively and reliably? Listen,
Mr.
Gaisuku,
we can talk that at a different
the Ghana Power Lights and the Ghana Water Authority receive a total of over $30 billion in subsidies annually. Something is wrong with our logic here. Something is really wrong here.
Let us focus on the sugar industry, Mr. Ryan.
Yes, well, I'm just going to fire because
machinery and equipment used in the sugar industry. There's also articles in the papers and discussions there as to the importation of different types of tractors, the Bell tractors against the John Deere and other tractors. Maybe our General Secretary of GAU would be able to tell us a little bit more about what is happening there. Are these tractors that are imported actually the best? And if not so, why didn't we or do we not consider importing the better tractors?
I like you, Dr. Jadoopat, have read those articles. I don't profess by any means to be an agricultural engineer or expert to offer any guidance on the suitability or unsuitability of tractors. I think that's best left to the technical personnel in Gaisuku.
Yeah, there's a technical committee in Gaisuku that recommended that, but the recommendations I understand were not adhered to.
Gaisuku publicly saying that there was some technical evaluation committee that examined the merits and demerits of one tractors against the other, and they came up with a recommendation. I gather there was some disagreement on that, but I can't venture further than what I saw in the papers.
Yeah, I understand that the soil and all of that is important. So I'm surprised.
But as I said earlier, there are basic scientific principles we must adhere to, and so we would believe one would buy equipment consistent to attaining those principles or achieving those principles.
All right, and you're not aware. You, as the General Secretary, you're not aware as to what these advantages of the machinery and equipment that were bought have over those that were not bought.
No, I won't be able to say, and I'm in an unfortunate position to not be able to.
Right. The other thing here we can turn our attention to is the irrigation system in the industry, and I having worked.
All right. While Rudy is missing, I would just like to indicate something here. The Western world, through its medical analysis and its healthcare personnel, have essentially dictated to the entire world the danger of sugar. Buy any product, almost every product, and it will state at the back on the label the amount of sugar, the amount of calories that a product contains. The reason? Because sugar is linked to diabetes, obesity, heart diseases, and like I said, the most important label on these products are sugar and sodium. So if sugar is going to be a perpetrator of all these diseases, then the world is shying away from sugar.
But
whereas Guyana is running headlong over the cliff to produce sugar.
No, in fairness, Mr. Roopnarine, we have heard even more dire warnings about high fructose corn syrups and isoglucose.
Of course.
In the
all sugar, world. They're all sugar.
Right, they're all sugar, I accept. But there is also the argument that it's better to use natural cane sugar. I've seen companies, Coca-Cola and Pepsi, advocating or advertising products which use genuine cane sugar. Directly sugar producer.
Sorry about that.
There is it's a very debatable at the end. But at the end of the day, world sugar consumption is growing annually. We are seeing that. The data is there that bears it out. In fact, this year, the production year which ended last Friday, the previous one which ended last year, and it's estimated next year that there will be a deficit of sugar versus consumption, because consumption is growing faster than production, in fact.
Yeah, definitely. You want to have the commercial break now? Okay, please go ahead.
Celebrating an anniversary, renewing your vows, birthdays, bachelor or bachelorette parties, groups or conferences, then let Travelspan organize an all-inclusive vacation trip that suits your occasion. With 28 years of experience in the business, Travelspan will tailor a package or cruise that suits all your needs for all occasions. Speak to our vacation experts and let them guide you. Call Russell or Allison to book your groups and special occasions, packages, or conferences. Call 212-243-0865. That's 212-243-0865.
Are you missing homemade food, snacks, drinks, roti and curries, or have a busy schedule? Then get your favorite curries and roti delivered directly to your home with all from one supplier. Come order your duck, goat, or chicken, fully cooked and ready to eat with dal puri or bus up shut. We also now have chicken tikka masala or lamb vindaloo available with regular naan or garlic naan. Don't forget to add your solo, icy, coconut water, or Nestle drinks to these delicious meals. Select your choice, and load your box and let allfromonesupplier.com deliver directly to your home. All From One Supplier has you covered for all your food. Plus if you need pepper sauce, curry powders, fish, meat, ghee, and so much more. We also have tasty pastries like pine tarts, cheese rolls, currants rolls, coconut rolls and so much more. Sales are ongoing every week, and your first order is 10% off once you apply the coupon code, Globespan24x7. Log on to allfromonesupplier.com today and purchase. Allfromonesupplier.com is your one-stop shop for all West Indian items, and remember it's free shipping to all US states.
Okay, gentlemen, back to the program after the commercial break. If you wouldn't mind, I see we're getting into some very intricate discussions here. I want to have a little break, and as I said earlier, I worked in the sugar industry, and since at school I had the sugar industry, and the hardship that these sugar workers face in my heart. So at school I wrote a poem, and I want to share that with our viewers and you. Brief poem. It's probably the only poem that is a tribute to the sugar workers, and it goes like this. 1974, before GAU was recognized in the sugar industry, and it was used by GAU for campaigning to the polls to become the industry representative for the sugar workers. And it goes like, if you hear the treatment cane cutters get, you may shiver, but if they remain ununited, they will suffer. So workers, please put your heads together, for one day you will achieve victory forever. He labors so much on this land, never sits down, but always stand, toiling with a tool grasped in one hand. Now he might be old, but started as a lad, fetching cane, guarding his head with only a pad. If you were in his place, you would have never been glad. Starting in the mornings, as early as 2, coming back in the evenings, with his skin black and blue. This is no farce, but very, very true. These people work regardless of the weather. If you check, their hands may seem to be like leather. Go and listen to this story. You will surely quiver. Thank you. 1974, Rudy Jadoopat. Poem I wrote for the tribute to the cane cutters. So let us move on now on our program. That's a little break there, and talk about the plight of the sugar workers now. We talk about the salary, the low wages. Who's responsible for that? Why are they not getting more? And what about the health care? Is it enough? Is it adequate? What GAU thinks about that? What Mr. Leyland Roopnarine thinks about that? What about the social conditions that they are faced in their communities? Is that adequate? Can it be improved? Can their children get better education? Can they get better facilities in their neighborhoods, like sports facilities? We know the rum drinking problem we have around the sugar estates, lack of facilities. What do you guys think about that? Is that something that makes sense?
Want me to go first?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Singh.
Okay, so I mean, speaking to healthcare, as you know, you've been familiar with sugar. Guys who would have operated dispensaries, health centers at various points in the estate. So those still remain available to sugar workers, their families, and former sugar workers, pensioners, for them to get primary health care. In fact, in some instances, some workers have remarked that the drugs that Gaisuku has at those centers are superior to what they would get at the hospital. So there is a lot of use of the dispensaries and the health facilities of Gaisuku. Apart from that, sugar workers are screened annually when they attain a certain age, certain types of health checks and so on. So I mean, from a health point of view, I think, of course, you can argue there was always need for improvement, or there's always scope for improvement. But I mean, the health facilities of Gaisuku continues to remain an integral part of the benefits they offer to their employees. Apart from that, in the estates where they operate, they still maintain the community centers. I know some of the centers, in collaboration with governmental organizations, they offer classes to sugar workers, their spouses, their children on different vocations. The training school also is also another tangible contribution of the industry in educating its not only its workers but the offspring of its workers. Many children of workers have been able to become educated. I mean, and I think the Port Moran School has often been regarded as one of the better training schools in Guyana and even in the Caribbean. It has a reputation for that. But yes, there always, like I said, there's always scope for improvement. But I mean, it's interesting that you raised that point, about the social facilities and what we saw in the essays, which were closed, and the vacuum created when these facilities were no longer operated because Gaisuku no longer operated them. We saw the ILO study which was done, the socioeconomic study which was done by the ILO, has data that demonstrates how suicide increased, how crime increased, how alcohol abuse and so on increased in those communities, the destitution and the deprivation which took place in the communities of Wales, East Demerara, Rosal, and Skeldon. So, I mean, it's the rum, the alcohol culture is not confined to sugar. It's maybe a national problem, and that I know Gaisuku has classes, has talks with the workers to talk about these kind of things, the health workers, and even the unions. When we have educational classes, workers would speak to these in an effort to educate them. So yes, they are challenges. Or they may be
How
Sorry.
do we resolve some of these challenges that you mentioned there? Any recommendation for a
I,
solution to that?
well, I think one needs to look at where there can be improvement. One needs to look at what can be done. Can we utilize, for instance, the community centers more than they are now? Can we offer different classes and facilities for children, not only of sugar workers, but children of the community? Because the sugar facilities have never been restricted only to sugar workers and their families, but has always been open to the wider community. So I think, we can look at those things. How can Gaisuku improve its health services to its workers? That might be those are things, but I mean, I don't have the specific interventions here, but these require deeper introspection, I think.
Okay, Mr. Rusanine, are
Well,
you there?
Mr. Singh is telling us about the closing down of the sugar industry, fueling the abuse of alcohol. We didn't have to wait for the sugar industry to close to see alcohol being drunk like water through the sugar industry. Alcohol and wife beating is a culture of sugar workers. I grew up in the heart of the sugar industry. My father emphasized on me, I don't want you, my son, to work in these sugar estates. And so I'm like, I'm in America and I do real estate. The point I'm trying to make is that there are certain
You want all the
cultures or
sugar workers to
certain
come to
behavior
America?
patterns that are associated with sugar. Granted, the positive part of sugar production is that the sidelines, drainage and irrigation are maintained by Gaisuku. But this entire culture of drinking rum, wife beating, customary labor is also a part of sugar production culture, right? One of the one of the kind of oxymoronic things I would like to say about sugar is that sugar has been a glorious and successful failure for the PDP government. No working bloc support any political party, not even the bauxite workers in Leyland that will support the PNC, can compare to the sugar industry bloc that supports the PPP government. If you look at 7,000 sugar workers, with each one having about 4 adult direct relations, like white sons from a lot of lot, we are looking at about 7 months. So roughly 4 and 1 7 5 to 5,000 people that'll be voting for the PPP. Figure it out,
Right.
both.
What is the point?
That's a lot of seats. That's why sugar has to be maintained.
I don't agree that, I mean, this wanton alcohol abuse by sugar workers. Yes, they like in all fraternities and all subsets of societies, there will be those issues occurring. But I don't think, that sugar workers are compulsive or use compulsive alcohol abuse. I mean, many of them may use alcohol socially, but I don't think they necessarily go home to commit domestic violence and so on. Many sugar workers, in fact, and I mean, it's something I am particularly pleased about. Many sugar workers have been able, as Mr. Roopnarine said, he has a background from coming from sugar, living within. But many sugar workers have been able to educate their children, have been able to send them to universities, things which are once thought, unattainable for many. I recall in 2015, as a child of a sugar worker topped the University of Guyana, receiving the Presidential Medal of the University of Guyana. So we have, I mean, I don't think we should throw the baby out of the bathwater, so to speak.
Okay,
but the point I'm making is that no other profession in Guyana is guilty of domestic violence like sugar workers. Not the teaching profession, not the bauxite workers, not the gold miners. No, that is something that is more prolific in the sugar belt. But let's move forward here. Right?
How do we resolve that?
They are to report something historical here. King Pyrrhus, after he defeated the Romans in the Battle of Hercula in 280 BC, King Pyrrhus was forced to declare to his people when he went back home, another such victory and we are doomed. Because in inflicting victory, in inflicting defeat to the Romans, he suffered a terrific loss of troops. But he came out victorious. So we have a sugar industry that we want to come out victorious. But when we do come out victorious, it will be a severe toll on the pockets of the people in there, on the economy. And the very surplus that we get from oil will be going to fill a hole that we're digging. So the question is, where do we go with sugar here?
Okay,
Sugar,
Mr. Rudy,
if you look at it from a financial perspective, 1 acre of cane will give you 3 tons of sugar. Let's say that's 800 US. 1 acre cane will give you 800 US. 1 acre of hemp will give you 10,000 US dollars. We could diversify to hemp. That's just a start. There are other crops that we can diversify to. Sugar has done its job, and like any good cricketer or any good athlete, it's time for you to retire. You could become a trainer. So the people who work in the sugar industry should be prepared and should embrace another form of income and another culture of production. Sugar is not going anywhere in that country. Now, let me just say something else. Sugar is a highly political commodity as well. From the days of colonialism to the PNC days to the PPP days, sugar workers have always been a pawn to be bounced around and to be used and abused by the powers that be. That should never be. Listen, right now as we speak here, President Biden is in Florida. He's in Florida trying to bring salvation and some measure of security to the people who have suffered the effects of Hurricane Ian. Florida did not vote for Mr. Biden. Florida voted for the Republican Party. But it shows that you must put the greater benefits of the people before your personal aggrandizement, your personal prejudices. So hats off to Mr. Biden, and I wish the PPP and the PNC could put aside their partisan, political, and racist tendencies and work for the betterment of every single Guyanese. This is not a question where Black Lives Matter.
Okay.
All lives matter.
Okay, you said that quite a few times. Let us move on to the next
if we can,
situation.
just before we move on, I mean,
Okay, go ahead,
uh,
Mr. Singh.
sugar has made a tremendous contribution. Economically, I remember reading the 1992 budget and sugar levy alone. Forgetting the other things sugar did. The sugar levy alone was 25% of the budget. It tells you, it gives you how stark of a contribution sugar is. I don't, like as I said, I don't share the view that necessarily diversification outside of sugar. I believe, and Gao believes, that diversification within sugar is possible to bring about some measure of success. We've seen that already in transitioning to the value added. I heard Mr. Roopnarine saying that 1 acre of sugar will give 1 acre of cane will give you 800
3
US
tons of
dollars.
sugar,
3 tons of
roughly.
sugar. At 3 tons of sugar at $700 a ton, that's 2,100. Just using I'm going by guys who numbers that are publicly reported. I don't have any information that is asymmetric to anyone else here. So there are possibilities. We do those things. Gao has publicly said it time and time again that there are possibilities for the industry to move from merely being a sugar producer to other products.
Mr. Singh, let us move on now to the other aspect, the housing situation within the sugar industry and the infrastructure there for the sugar workers. Is there any problems there that you can
I think
identify? And if so, what are some of the recommended solutions you may want to share with us?
All right, so I think we need to have a little context on how housing was developed in sugar. I mean, sugar after the end of slavery and subsequently after the end of the indentureship, housing in the East were largely controlled by the plantation owners. After the end, more martyrs, the Sugar Industry Labor Welfare Fund, which was predates the martyrdom, but they became more active and they would have developed housing schemes in many sugar areas of the country. Sugar workers at that time would have been able to obtain lots and even loans. The labor fund provided loans to workers to build homes. Now I think the situation has changed where now there's a national housing policy where many workers through that mechanism have been able to obtain house lots and land for housing. Many of them have continued to benefit from the sugar industry welfare housing loans, which are interest free, and they repay that through their earnings weekly or monthly, as the case may be. So the housing, I don't think it's a big issue as it was in the post-mart and more martyrs period. So, and the sugar industry labor, in fact, our union represents, so the workers will bring areas which may need a road to be rehabilitated or a bridge to be built, and we're able to represent that to the sugar industry labor welfare fund for them to address those conditions.
Okay, Mr. Ruttarai, would you like to say anything on that before we move on?
Well, it begs the question. Guyana's population at let's say 10 years before independence, compared to the population now, it's roughly the same amount. Not much different. Maybe a 5% increase. Yet, the people who work in the sugar industry could walk into an office and get a house lot within a month. I know people who have applied for house lot and are waiting 8 years now. So when we talk about housing, there's something radically wrong here. Because we have 83,000 square miles and 750,000 people. On the other hand, Bangladesh, with about 65,000 square miles and 120 million people, are giving out house lots. So when you want to equate these two, the housing situation is a horror show. Vis-a-vis the fact that we have such a small amount of people and such large acreages of land.
Yeah, you're repeating
and now we're talking about acreage of land.
You're repeating the
I'll make this point here.
Can you make recommendations
when under the Ramaphosa government, the guy's Suko balance sheet is looking very rosy and nice, that they have making so much money. They weren't making money from sugar.
Yeah, but
they made money from selling their lands to Ghana Housing Authority.
Yeah, we have problems.
That's how they made the money. So
recommendations for solutions to this housing problem.
So the housing, well, Gaisuko, not only Gaisuko workers have a housing problem, the entire country has a housing problem.
Yeah,
Half the population lives in Georgetown.
resolve the problems? We don't want to repeat problems. We want to hear solutions from you
Well, I'm getting
experts.
to the solution.
Okay.
The solution to these housing, the solution is that we need to build other cities and other centers of disposition, like passport and hospitals. So people will not gravitate to Georgetown for everything. You can go to Leno and get something. You can go to Windsor Forest and get something. You know, you can go to Diamond and get something. But why do you have to come to Georgetown to get a passport and a driver's license? Listen, Rudy, and all of you, after 56 years of independence, it's a horror show to get a replacement driver's license or an ID card or death certificate or a birth certificate. It takes you months. Something that you can walk into any office in America here and get within 2 weeks by a mail. You could even get these things over the phone. People travel from Bartica to go to Georgetown for a passport and are told you have to come back tomorrow. We're in a horrible situation. The administration of that country, both past and present, is very incompetent. They are not equipped to handle a structured system. Their country, they have this haphazard donkey cart way of handling their business.
What I'm
saying here is that Gaisuko should be dissolved. That entity that we call Gaisuko should be dissolved. There should never be anything like Gaisuko anymore in Guyana. Guyana Sugar Corporation, owned by the people of Guyana. We have gone away from socialism and communism. Each sugar estate should be sold and workers paid accordingly to the production and productivity.
Gaisuko, so what do we do with it? I want to hear the solutions.
Dissolve Gaisuko and privatize each sugar estate. So the government should never get involved in business. Government should monitor business, facilitate business, collect taxes and royalties that will help build infrastructure in the country. But government itself cannot be involved in any business. Look at the business that the government was involved in. We can start with Skelton Factory, the major farm project, the Skelton Hospital. And they've all been glorious failures. Government should never be involved in business.
Mr. Roopnarine, remember now, let me say a little bit here. As I said earlier, I worked in Gaisuko for some years and I've studied it, and I studied economics also. So I can share some views here. Gaisuko is not only producing sugar. Gaisuko has a very intricate network of activities. For example, the drainage of the systems around where the sugar work, where people live, is dependent on the sugar industry's operations.
I mentioned that already.
If those canals are not cleared, and the funding for clearing those canals comes from Gaisuko. So Gaisuko provides a kind of a social cushion there for the population also. Apart from that, the people who work in the sugar industry, they support the other industries because they have to consume vegetables and fruits from the neighboring activities there. People planting their gardens and farms and have their poultry and all that, they supply this to the workers also. So we have to look at this in a very, very, as Mr. Singh said earlier, in a more comprehensive way. So I think a study of this whole thing might be appropriate if it's not yet done. I understand there are many studies, but I don't know if these factors were taken into consideration. Mr. Singh is showing us. What do you have there, Mr. Singh?
This is a study done by the ILO.
When was it done?
It was released last year.
Last year, okay. Is it going to be implemented or is it being implemented?
Well, I mean, there are certain recommendations which the ILO has put to the government. I can't speak for the government in terms of the acceptance and subsequent implementation.
Okay, so let us hope that it can be tabled. Right. And this, we have about 20 minutes more. Now you talk about that report from the ILO and so on. It brings us to it flows into the next area that we would want to shed some light for the benefit of our viewers, and that is about the management of Gaisuko. We heard a lot of things in the media. I know Gau called for the resignation of the CEO for Gaisuko and things like that. People are not happy. There are lots of quarrels. We saw some things on Facebook where the board and the CEO had some issues and in the exchange of words and all of that stuff. What can you enlighten our viewers about the management of Gaisuko? How these officials are being appointed? What is the criteria used? Is it their actual academic background and experience in the field of management, or is it something else?
You get it?
Okay. So I think I was not being very shy in sharing its position on on the management of Gaisuku. We believe, the industry's management needs to be strengthened. There's a need for infusion of skills. I
How do
think,
we do that?
well, I'm getting there. I saw the vice president a few months ago saying similarly that that there's recognition by the government on that. So I think we need to look at recruiting, whether we can recruit locally or not. I'm not too certain. The skills that we need. There are many ex-Gaisuku managers who can probably be very good trainers to the current cadre of managers and the next cadre thereafter to help in strengthening the management. We may need to bring maybe skills from outside of Guyana in certain areas, especially with the trust of now pursuing mechanization. While mechanization is certainly not new, many of the skills guys who had in that area would have departed the industry either through retirement or other forms of attrition. So there is a need to strengthen management, to recruit appropriate and capable skilled persons to fill positions which are desperately needed in the industry to put it back on a trajectory.
What are some of those positions in your view?
Well, I mean, for instance, one which readily comes to mind is in the area of mechanization. I think the government, I saw the president saying recently that the government is actively examining expanding mechanization in the industry. Mechanization as there have been countless studies of mechanization industry from all different areas, but we're now reaching the point of actual implementation. So I think we need to have skills, especially in that area now, because it may require new ways or new techniques of doing certain things. And we may not have those skills readily available within the company at this time, or we may need to bolster those skills which are available.
Okay, Mr. Rutanai, would you like to say anything on that subject before we move on?
The concept of mechanization has been debated at length since the days of the Hart administration, right? Mechanization is it's just a good concept, but it won't work in the end because most of the times you go to harvest cane with a tractor, the tractor gets stuck in the mud because the soil in Ghana is very soft, it's loam soil, and when it is wet, the tractors cannot cut the cane and load the cane. So mechanization is out for most of the year. Most of the year. Whether you're cutting cane, mechanization will not work. Secondly, the portion of the tractor is an issue here. Because if you portion a tractor of 300 horsepower to cut cane and pull cane, you have to add another extra 50 or 100 horsepower for the tractor to plow through the mud. So that's the problem. Not only would the tractor have to be more strong, but it also have to have the type of capability and flexibility to go through mud. So this is not a straight road tractor. This is a special tractor that's needed for this. Just remember this. On the issue of tractor purchase 2 months ago, one of the directors of Gaisuku resigned, Mr. Tony Vieira, because he was very upset at the type of tractor that was being purchased by the CFO against the advice of many of the technical staff of Gaisuku. In fact, it was written in the papers that when they were supposed to be a demonstration of the tractors to the technical engineers in Gaisuku, only 2 persons turned up to witness how the tractors were operated in the fields. So Gaisuku is like a comedy. Everything about Gaisuku is going haywire. From the cost of production, to the administrative structure, to the yield per acre, to the export quotas of Gaisuku, to the management. So we have a company that has become a glorious failure here. I
Right.
mean,
Okay.
there's something wrong with our agriculture system here. When we have an agriculture minister who advises the president that we should grow blackberry sheep, and we buy blackberry sheep from Barbados of all places, 3 million sheep, sorry, $3 million US for 1,000 sheep. Are we paying 3,000 US dollars for one sheep? How much more chemical can you get in that country? We are supposed to be the land that produces water. We call it, the word Guyana means the land of many waters.
Okay. You said that. You
When you
said that
go
before,
anywhere in
Mr.
Guyana, you have
Ryan.
to buy bottled water coming from America and Trinidad and Suriname.
Okay.
These are really comical situations.
Yeah. Let us not
I
repeat the
just
same thing. Let us
sorry,
move
sorry.
on. You
No,
want to say
before
something?
we go, I just want to add some clarity. You know,
Go ahead.
as Mr. RoopnarineModerator rightly said, mechanization is not new in the industry. I think it's been advanced over the years. In fact, right now, I am aware that at Albion and Blairmont Estate, and to some extent Eifert Estate, they are harvesting canes mechanically. We don't harvest canes with a tractor, but there's a specialized mechanical harvester that harvests the cane. Um, I don't not sure where Mr. Roopnarine has got his information that you need a 300 horsepower tractor to pull canes. As far as I am aware, Gaisuku uses a 45 horsepower tractor which pulls close to 100 tons of cane to the factory. So I just wanted to add some clarity there. In addition to that, there's also semi-mechanized cane loading and a host of other things that are ongoing. That's certainly not new, but may not be necessarily known in the public outside of those in the industry.
So, Mr. Singh, you're saying there's a process of gradually mechanizing the.
Yes, so there's been gradual mechanization. There's semi-mechanical planting going on for years, semi-mechanical cane loading. More recently, maybe a little bit more than 10 years now,
Yes.
mechanized cane harvesting, as we were discussing
So
prior.
you're more optimistic in that.
Well, we are seeing that their efforts there. I saw, as I said recently in the papers, Gaisuku moving to purchase implements for fertilizing and chemical application. So mechanizing from that point of view as well in those husbandry practices.
Yeah. Now, as we move on to the program, we have another 10 minutes more. I want us to just pay a little attention to the availability of data and information, which I mentioned earlier, for the benefit of the not only the sugar workers but for the citizens of Guyana. I do hope that GAU would, be a part of this, requesting the Gaisuku management and staff and the government, Ministry of Agriculture, to ensure that data and information is comprehensive and complete about the sugar industry, so that by viewing it, people will be able to make recommendations for improvement. Right now, the information is not available, and people just hear from each other. But if it's now we have technology at our disposal, we have websites. Can the website has have pages on which you say total, for example, total acreage per estate, cost of cultivation for whatever, total cost of fertilizer so much, cost of tractor so much, the benefits, the advantages, the labor availability, because I understand that people don't want to work in the sugar industry like before. There's problems, there's a labor shortage in the sugar industry. I don't know if it's true. You might be able to shed some light on that. And how do we get them? I understand that if you give them more money, there were some instances when Booker's was asked to manage the sugar industry after nationalization. The first thing they did, one of the first things, was to increase the salary. So things like that. What is the total cost of production per estate? What about the factory operations? What are some of the requirements? So how does that compare with other countries' operations? We need to have this information like publicly available very often, all the time. This is not secret, and it shouldn't be a secret. The same thing with the employees, the structure of the cooperation, who manages what, and what are the qualifications and expertise? Are they suitable? And things like that. So moving on now is we have here the general view that the sugar cooperation in Guyana is poorly managed, and there's a lot of corruption there. What are your views on that? Is there an absence of corruption? Is there good management? What do you think? There is scope for improvement, and how do we go about addressing those issues so that we can see improvement in the decision-making process also?
For us on the question of corruption, I mean, I don't have any specific information on corruption to make any comment on that.
Okay.
There's no information that I have at hand that allows me to offer comment. So from our point of view, we can't comment on corruption within the industry. If it exists or if it does not.
You don't know. Okay.
I mean, as I said, I don't have any evidence. We don't have any evidence in our possession to say that they're corrupt practices.
But is there a perception from your perspective?
I don't want to venture into perceptions because perceptions could be misleading.
Yes, that's true.
We rather deal with tangible evidence which could confirm or deny. I mean, what I would expect that Gaisuku, as a proper corporate body, would seek to dispel with appropriate evidence any notion of corruption, or would address any investigation or whatever may necessary to be required to address the perception or the alleged allegation of corruption. So I don't want to venture into that direction at all without. On the issue of management per se, and we have said, we have disagreements with management. We believe there's a need for it to be strengthened. We don't necessarily, obviously there's a need for skills and there's a need for training, and there might be need for other things as well. But I think it requires, to say specifically what are the measures that should be. I will be unable to do that, barring a complete examination and having at my disposal all the information to make any proper pronouncement.
But the ILO report that you just showed us there, does that contain a list of recommendations?
This
includes the
not within the realm of management. It did not address the realm of management. So okay. In fairness to the authors of the report, that was not part of the terms of reference.
Okay, that's for the viewers to know. That's why I'm asking these things, so the viewers can have a clear understanding as to the reality on the ground. And you are the representative of the sugar workers. You're the general secretary of the Guyana Agricultural Workers Union and in the sugar industry. So I'm sure that our viewers will hear that. They'll be able to understand things better and where the union stands as with regards to Gaisuku. Mr. Leyland Roopnarine, do you want to comment on that topic?
Well, one, Narendra wrote an article in the Stabrook News a week ago. Actually, not a week ago. It was October the 1st. That was 5 years ago, right?
Yeah, I saw that article also, yes.
And he indicated that $3 million was paid to a prominent businessman to procure a Volvo SUV sports vehicle. The vehicle was never procured from that particular businessman, but the money was never returned to Gaisuku. It was written off as bad debt. So the motto seems to be, according to Mr. Lai, those who oppose and expose will be deposed. So we have a touch of the Bornamism here. This is the hierarchy of dictatorship here. You have to follow the leader or you'll be dropped.
No. Is that a matter for the police to handle?
Well,
sorry, you're talking about the Guyana police force?
No, you
can't talk about the Guyana police force.
No, maybe you can't read
Guyana,
newspapers
Mr. Moderator. It seems in Guyana, everyone knows who the thieves and criminals and murderers are, except the police force.
So what is your solution?
No, for clarity, Mr. Moderator. Okay. I don't know the thieves and murderers and so on.
We're talking about the police force here. We just
everyone else besides the police force. So, as a citizen of Guyana,
I think Roopnarine has a style of expressing himself that different from other people. So, Mr. Roopnarine, what are your recommendations for possible solutions.
Oh,
You have
my solution
1 minute.
to make Gaisuko a profitable company is first of all to scrap the name Gaisuko and whatever connotations and implications that GUISCU means. Scrap the company.
Okay,
Let
Mr.
each state be an independent entity that produces sugar and alternative crops.
Okay, that's
Sell Gaisuko individual estates to people who know about sugar, like the people from India and Australia. They're sugar people. Thailand also, right? They're have sugar in their blood.
yeah, Thailand and Brazil. Yes.
Good. Next, the subsidies to Gaisuko has to be recovered. Because if you continue to subsidize Gaisuko, it's like giving away money and you're not seeing any benefit from it. If you are seeing any benefit from subsidizing Gaisuko, then one would say a subsidy to Gaisuko might in the long run bear fruits. But you're planting seeds on concrete. There's no way it's going to grow. $20 billion since the PPP government take office.
Okay, you said that before.
$20 billion.
Anything new you want to add?
Total waste of money.
Okay.
So we can go for another solution to Gaisuko.
10 seconds more.
Yeah, another solution to make Gaisuko viable is the alternative crops. We went hemp, and there are other cash crops like citrus, which the European Union had discussed it around with our administration when Mr. Rob was talking, Minister of Agriculture, and the money that was given to Guyana was spent on other projects. We don't know what other projects are, but we yet to see the fruits of that subvention that Gaisuko received from the European Union.
Right. 1 minute, Mr. Singh, for your final.
All right. Again, thanks. I think, as I said previously, I want to reiterate, sugar needs to go back to those scientific principles which have made it successful. We need to take advantage of new science and new technology. Mechanization offers an alternative in reducing costs. It offers a very viable alternative. And two, we need to look at diversification within the context of sugar, whether energy, agroenergy, ethanol, continued packaged sugar, refining, and so on. Those all offer possibilities for the success of the industry. I just wanted to make one quick point that the monies that were released by the European Union towards industry came within the context of a plan which the European Union approved, and the plan is publicly available. And I think it would be beneficial for Mr. Roopnarine and others to probably Google the plan, and they will see where they are.
Is it available on the internet?
I don't know.
Can the guys put it on the website? Or put it on the website and circulate that?
Yeah, I can try to do that, but I know it was available on the Ministry of Agriculture's website. Okay. I haven't been to the.
Put the link on your website. Yeah?
Right. I haven't been to that site for some time, so I don't know if it's still there or not.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to thank you, Roopnarine. Mr. Roopnarine, would you like to say something before we close? Your final word?
Well, my final words is that Gaisuko will never be profitable under the current management structure, and the huge capital infusion into Gaisuko is essentially affecting the pockets of every single Guyanese. Money that could be better spent on roads, hospital, bridges, and schools. And in the final analysis, if Gaisuko is going to produce sugar for twice the price that the world market has, it is doomed to failure.
Okay, thank you for your final word, Mr. Roopnarine. On behalf of Globespan 24/7, Mr. Nohar Singh, our technical team, headed by the director, Mr. Devin Bisoon, I want to say thanks to all our viewers for watching this program. Gentlemen, I want to thank you especially for the time you've taken to come on the program. We're looking forward to your continued interest in the sugar industry in particular, and keep watching Globespan 24/7. We have more economic issues to discuss in our future programs. We'll probably talk about rice and other things as we go along. And the thing is for our viewers to become more aware, to become to have discussions using the information that is coming out of our programs so that they can impact improvement in the decision-making process finally, and that would lead to improvement, hopefully, of the benefits to them. to the sugar workers, to the citizens of Guyana. This is the objective of Globespan. Thank you very much once again. Good night for all our viewers out there. Take care, and until next time.